All right, welcome everyone to the first episode of Building CareCo, together with my co-founder and CTO Shlomo Morozow. This is going to be fun. We're gonna sit together like once a week, as often as we can. The purpose is just to bring people through the journey of building CareCo. There's this kind of concept called building in public. It's become like a hashtag, and some people do it a little corny, and some people do it well. I think we'll probably do it well. That's my sense.
Got that bottle over there.
Yeah, and we'll drink some wine. It'll be fun. So this week we're going to have the Herzog Special Reserve. This is in the Alexander Valley. It's from California, and most kosher wines are the good ones are really Israeli. I'd say like the vast majority. But there's the Alexander Valley, and there's the what's the other valley? That's like the same one. It's like a blue label. It's a bluer label. Anyway, Sonoma Valley, I think it is. That Herzog makes, that's really good. And then there's still, there's some Spanish and some other stuff. We also have the Herzog Special opener, which I have no idea where I got that. And had nothing to do with us drinking Herzog wine. But there we go. Sponsorships available from Herzog. So, also kind of excited to introduce the world to you, to be honest, because I've obviously been very vocal on social media for the last 5 years through building Proviva and even over the last 2 years of building CareCo, and you've kind of been behind the scenes. I know this isn't your comfort zone, and I kind of pushed you into doing this, but I think it's going to be really good, and maybe this maybe the wine will help a little bit. CTOs are usually CTOs for a reason.
Usually dorky and non-social.
It's not dorky, it's not dorky, but usually you're the focused. Usually the CTO is like the focused personality type,
right.
Because
introvert,
more introvert.
I was trying to just set the bar very low, so everything feels good.
Yeah, don't talk about my CTO like that. He's awesome. All right, cheers. That's wonderful. So we'll talk about kind of just industry trends, what's going on, if we have challenges, successes. We were kind of talking a little off camera about some companies that do this kind of building in public, but they end up, you have to be very, very careful with messaging. Like your tone, and I don't think it's something you can fake. I think it's something that just you exude. But when companies are kind of like whiny, as if kind of the world owes them something, they're not getting it, and that's how they kind of bring people in. And then you have other people. Anyone that knows me well knows that there's one specific person that does this, and I can't stand him for it. Like building a brand about like when you're being open, but you're like talking about your customers in like a negative way, like where you're like about to go make a sale. Like there's this guy that does content like this. He'll be like outside the office building and be like, we're gonna go sell these guys. I'm gonna come in there. I know that they're gonna pay this, but I'm gonna start here. And he's like telling social media his whole strategy on how he's gonna like screw these guys on pricing. Oh. And I'm like, you do realize these people have LinkedIn. Like they're just gonna go on to where they're gonna see this. Like you can't build a business like that. So you have to be. I think.
Let alone like the mindset. Like that's not how you should be dealing with customers. Like you should have their best interest in mind.
Yeah.
That's how best sales done.
Yeah, 100%.
Or long term. I mean, that's a good long term strategy.
Yeah. So, okay, as far as hot topics, I mean, we could start there. There's this huge announcement, AI this week. Trump announced together with Sam Altman and Larry Ellison, and do you know his name?
Yeah.
Son.
Masayoshi Son.
Masa Son, right.
Masayoshi Son.
Which, okay.
You know who he is, SoftBank.
I know he's SoftBank, and I've seen him a million times, but until I actually looked him up this week because of this thing, I thought everyone was referring...
WeWork, the WeWork investor.
Right. It was like a big disaster.
He told, what's his name, the Israeli guy, that he's not crazy enough.
Google me. Google me. So fun fact, even though I've heard his name a million times through all these different things, but I always thought people were referring to him as someone else's son. Until I looked him up and I realized his name is Masa something Son, which is funny. But he has a really interesting relationship with Trump. I mean, he's got this kind of like this crush on the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, he's known. I mean, I think he's known like as this investor that just throws a lot of money at big projects, very ambitious projects. A lot of people were critical of him like years ago, and then
how do you make his money? Any idea?
I don't know his background. No.
He's someone's son. It's all inherited.
But that whole thing, Trump was interesting because it's like Trump and Elon are like very
Close.
are buddies now. Like Elon has his, has his ear on everything. It sounds
Yeah.
like, but then at the same time, Elon and Sam are fighting on X, and then you have Trump like bringing Sam into the White House, him and Larry Ellison as the big tech guys. Where's Elon? That's what I was trying to figure out.
So here's the thing. I thought about this. I don't think it would be a possibility for Elon to win that contract because at the end of the day, the way that it sits right now, OpenAI is number one. They're number one. There's a big argument to be made that XAI has built these crazy clusters, right? Famously, Elon put together some insane data center with like 100 clusters or something like that.
I think at least 100.
Yeah, all in like 8
100
days?
chips.
9 days?
18 or something.
Yeah,
I don't know, crazy amount.
something
Like
crazy.
if you can see the guy from NVIDIA saying that no one in the world could do it.
Right.
Only Elon could do it.
Right. So, and then other people are saying that, wow, that stacked on top of the amount of data that they have through X, his LLM like 3.0 of Grok or whatever is going to be insane and it's going to be nuts. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, the way it stands today, like OpenAI is still the king. So if OpenAI is the king and Trump is friends with Elon, there's no way politically Elon gets that deal, even if he was maybe the better person, because
why? It's
the optics
it's not
are
about
so
marketing.
bad.
Why? Why is that? I mean, if the capability is there, Trump doesn't he care about results, not about the optics? I mean, the success of this project is not the announcement of it; it's what it delivers in the end. So, Elon's like the best executor ever. We all know that. I mean,
Yeah.
and in AI we see also he's firing on all cylinders. He's created this cluster no one thought is possible. AI, I think OpenAI doesn't have that expertise on hardware nearly as close to what XAI has. They're more software kind of AI engineers. I think so, but like if you're talking about like capabilities and just skill, the ability to deliver, XAI probably has that. So it was probably about something else. Maybe Elon doesn't care about it. Maybe Elon wants to focus on his thing, and he doesn't want to be part of this,
Right.
this big story.
I also think from Trump's perspective, look, Trump has been doing a really good job with, he's obviously pulled on, I mean, this Trump 2.0, the second administration is so different than the first. I think one of the main things that you've seen President Trump do is really pull together a lot of people from a lot of different corners. It's become kind of the party of unity to a very large degree, as far as like all of a sudden, we were talking about obviously the all-in pod. You've got like the whole Silicon Valley is like leaning in, not the whole Silicon Valley, but a lot of Silicon Valley, and a lot of people that otherwise, RFK and Tulsi and all these people that kind of joined on the bandwagon. And so I think his mindset is like, just how can I get someone that's not already in? And I think to a certain extent, actually, Elon already being on the train is actually a mark against him getting such a deal from a Trump perspective, because Trump wants, how can I find someone else that's not currently in the camp? How do I bring them in? And this was a good opportunity to do that with Sam Altman and OpenAI.
Strategic, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe,
look,
right,
yeah.
Or we also don't know. Like, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes.
Pure pontification here,
Yeah.
100%. But I was talking to you, like on LinkedIn, I'm kind of surprised how people are taking, like I'm seeing so much negativity about it, or a decent amount of negativity about it, that I just don't understand. Like,
About what?
About this announcement. So okay, we talked about, we didn't even say what the announcement was. So for those that didn't see, I'm sure everyone saw, but for those that didn't see, they announced a $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure in the US, titled under something called Stargate. I think it's over 3 years. They're starting with 100 billion. And then it's going to be over a couple years. But it's very exciting. And I posted about this on LinkedIn. What I personally found really interesting. Did you watch the announcement? Mm-hmm. So Larry Ellison gets up and
I watched it in parts. Like I watched a different.
Did you see his part, Larry?
Yeah.
So he gets up and what does he talk about?
AI, how it's going to affect health and cancer.
He talks about patient care. He talks about research and the way that I saw some friends of mine, Brendan Keeler, who's awesome, talked about this a little bit, but almost sounded like he was talking about something that sounds very similar to Epic's Cosmos. So Epic has this thing called Cosmos, which is like a giant data lake, and what they're trying to do is get all their health systems to buy in by giving their data to this, and then it gets de-identified, and then now they can access all the other kind of participants' data. And one of the big use cases is like lookalike type stuff, where you could start doing a lot really, really interesting research and saying, hey, can we find patterns with this kind of patient type? So I did an episode with my friend and our advisory board member, Dr. Carew, and the example that we had a guest on, and the example that he was saying was how they were looking at the connection between patients with I think it was Down syndrome and was it alopecia? Something like that. But it was like these weird connections that all of a sudden now you have access to this massive data lake. You could start seeing these like, hey, I'm seeing that patients, the patterns, and try to find a lot of that stuff. So Larry was kind of saying similar things. The exact thing that he said is how an Indian reservation health system, they have their own health systems, can kind of see how a physician in whatever the best hospital for whatever subcategory or specialty. How they're dealing with a similar patient and kind of doing things like that. But at the end of the day...
I saw him talking about cancer. He said AI is going to help to detect antibodies.
I think Trump asked Sam, okay, Larry talked about health. Can you talk about how this might move towards finding new medical cures and stuff like that?
Okay.
And Sam kind of backed off it, and he was like, I'm going to let them talk about it, but I do think that... Yeah.
But that's huge. I mean,
he's like, by the way, Larry's like 70 something, right? He's like very old, right?
Older. I think it's closer to 80 or maybe 80
He looks strange. I'm sorry.
Okay. He's dyeing his hair. He's doing surgery.
Why? Yeah, I don't get that.
Ask all the people in Hollywood. Why?
No, but why blonde? I mean, dude, he's like, but he also looks really good to a certain extent. He like looks terrible and looks good all at the same time. Like he looks fit, he looks spry. He doesn't look
right.
Like he doesn't look old, but
I wouldn't mind looking like him when I'm 80.
No? All right, I'll get you a bottle of hairspray. Dye or whatever.
I'm not going to choose to color my hair, but I'm saying, yeah, he's doing good.
Yeah, he definitely holds himself.
He's 80, right?
He's 80. Yeah, he definitely holds himself kind of very well, and he's so tall also. He was towering over
all these
them.
boomers, look at them. They're like in their upper 70s, 80s, Trump, Larry. I mean, these guys, they're not ready to step back, and it's unprecedented. It's like the amount of energy these people have. I don't know if what they're taking,
think
hormones
there's a
or
secret
whatnot.
society, secret Brian Johnson society going on over here. You know what's interesting about Brian Johnson? You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, the health, the live forever, the longevity guy.
He somehow somewhat accepted in the medical world.
Really?
Yeah, like I've got a friend, Dr. Slotkin. He's the guy that I trained with a couple, like maybe a month ago with that UFC fighter. Surgeon, super, and he's like working with him. Like he had him on a webinar for he's with some other friends of mine, Rebecca Mitchell and Christina Farr, who I haven't met, but she's kind of a second degree connection. They started something called Scrub Capital, which is like a small VC fund run by physicians. And they had him on. It's like, and I feel like those type of people that are out of the box, they're like always shunned by the medical community. And he somehow found like a little shoe in where he's like somehow accepted. And it's like, yeah. And he has all the signs of being a snake oil salesman, meaning he's selling stuff. He's selling his olive oil, literal oil. He's the guy selling oil. You know what I mean? He's selling olive oil and chocolate and like, random stuff that he found. And I'm not saying he's a scam. I'm just saying I find it interesting. I feel like there's an aversion towards that in the medical community, but
maybe it's like secretly people want to believe this whole aging, living forever, so they're kind of
works.
Yeah.
You look him up ever? Like you ever went deep on the Brian Johnson?
I just saw people showing pictures of him being like, he doesn't look better.
Right. Yeah,
he actually looks worse since he.
I actually saw like a dad make a video. He's like, Brian Johnson is 1 month younger than me, and he does all this stuff, and I look healthier than him. And he wasn't ripped. This guy was just like a regular dad, but he was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not here to crap on Brian Johnson. I haven't gone that deep into it, but
I think it's incredible, like technology, anti-aging, not what he's doing, but like in the research, like of like cell, reversing aging and on the genome, on the genetic level. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening there. Yeah. But just speaking about like the AI going into health from the Trump announcement, like what Larry Ellison talked about the cancer, that's huge. Like if you think about where the money's at, if you can cure cancer, if you can tell someone, I guarantee you I can cure cancer, but it's going to cost you $2 million, that he's going to come up with it, right? A lot of people are going to come up with it, whether it's going to be their community, their friends, their family. Like you can save a life for $2 million. You can take all your friends are going to bring their life savings. I mean, it's huge. I mean, not if the person's 85 years old, but if the person's 30, 40, 50, 60, you know. So how many people have cancer in the US every year? Like, you're talking about 5%? I mean, maybe I'm wrong about the number, but so I have like this idea of 5% in my head. So you're talking about a huge amount of people. So you're talking about close to like a couple million people.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, you know, billion, like lots of money there.
And that kind of goes together with like the idea. So I did a post today. I listened to that, listened to the latest healthcare related podcast from AZ16. Usually I feel like Jay Ragani is on these, but it was, I'm trying to remember her name, something you, whatever her name was. And AJ, let's see if I can remember this. You want to pull it up?
I'm looking for it.
We got to get the names, you know.
You want to talk a bit about CareCo, what CareCo is?
Yeah, for sure.
Some background.
Yeah. So this will actually lead into that. So they were talking about one of the many use cases for AI is basically like down the road is basically creating like, and this also actually, you mentioned genomes, like understanding people and their DNA, and then making like specific cocktails of medications, and knowing exactly how it'll affect me versus you, and you know, and because side effects, because you know a lot of these things right now it's just like general side effects. So they're going to do a massive, what's these studies called? Totally in my mind. A massive
controlled studies.
No, like when they test medications. I don't know why this term is slipped my mind, but anyway, they'll do like a massive study and then they decide side effects, right? So side effects, I'm not going to have the same side effects as you versus that person, like that. So with AI, you could actually figure that out and be like, okay, this is going to affect you in this way. This is actually going to be good for you. This is not going to bother you at all. This is going to
right. Similar to what Larry Ellison was saying, that you can within 48 hours. I mean, I never heard of this, but I heard of it. Him saying this, they can develop a vaccine that would cure the cancer. I mean,
and possibly for you. That's the crazy thing. Like
right. Specifically for your for
each individual person. So and where this comes to where this is interesting is that, you know, and this is probably conspiracy, but there's conspiracy how like there's actually cures for cancer, but they make so much money off it that they, you know, there's these giant cancer centers and there's medications, they cost so much money, and every infusion is like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or whatever. So therefore there's no incentive to cure cancer. In fact, it's the opposite, where there's an incentive to keep cancer around. And that's probably a conspiracy, but there's definitely a certain large element of truth to it, where when you're in which is basically the concept of fee-for-service versus value-based care, where when you're in a fee-for-service world, at the end of the day, that is true to a certain extent. Whether it's all the way to the conspiracy where people are actively blocking people from finding cures to cancer, probably not, but it's definitely a different reality.
Intent, but the incentives are ultimately pushing things in a certain direction.
So my point is that as we come around to value-based care and we move further and further towards that, and AI is kind of progressing at the same time, there's actually the incentive structure and the environment now being put into place to incentivize people to actually use these tools to find those solutions. Right? Because if now I flip the model on its head, where I'm taking risk on a patient outcome, and I maybe like just taking a flat rate to manage a population of cancer patients, yeah, of course I want them to get better. That's exactly what I want. And I want them to not have complications. I want them to not have side effects. And I want them to, you know. So it's interesting how kind of at the same time we're seeing the advancement of AI in this direction, and also laying down the groundwork for having the correct environment to actually, you know, put that together.
I had a crazy thought when I was seeing that thing of Larry Ellison about the cancer. I was like, that's pretty amazing. And then I was like, the second thought was like, one second, if in 10 years or whatever this is, everybody gets cured through AI, is CareCo going to be needed? Similar to what you're saying. Like is our services needed if everybody's healthy? And I would definitely be happy for everybody to be cured.
Yeah,
but like if AI is like it's leapfrogging everything that we're seeing in front of us right now, is just jumping, you know, leaps and bounds to cure people to a point where there's a solution for everything. That'll be pretty amazing. But the whole landscape of health will change. Like, you know, this whole infrastructure of the way we use things with medication and all that will look very different.
So it's interesting you bring that up, because this kind of comes down to something that you and I talk about almost on the daily, which is we've taken a pretty strong stand about CareCo that it's an augmentation, not an elimination, right? I publicly, I put out kind of a piece after Forward Health shut down talking about Hippocratic AI and why I think they're going to be, why I think they're going to be next. And they just, and congrats to them, even though I don't believe in a lot of what they're doing, but they just did another very successful raise. They're now raised at a $1.6 billion valuation, which I think just makes their bubble thinner and wider and more prone to popping.
Give them a fair chance. Let's see.
Yes, but it does come down to and again, I obviously want nothing more than for them to succeed. But at the end of the day, I'm being very clear that I disagree.
You don't think it's reality, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's reality, and I think that it's what I've said a million times. It's what I call pie in the sky AI, which is just like, and what's so interesting about this is that often it's the exact underlying ingredients that make a company intriguing to venture are the exact things that make it not work in the real world. That's what I find is so interesting because these people, they call them unicorn hunters, right? All these venture capital funds, they're not looking for a little win, right? You talk about this all the time. They're looking for that slam dunk. They're looking for that future,
right? And they'll push you to take that great risk because for them, the great return is what matters. The fact that you have a 90% chance or 95% chance of failing, they don't care about that because they're pushing the other guy too. So one of the out of the 10 investments are going to be 100x. That's what they care about.
Yeah.
But for your self-interest, it's better for you to go slower and safer because you prefer guaranteed 10x than most likely very uncertain 100x, right? Because you can't build 10 companies. You're limited in the capacity of how many companies you can build over the next few years. I mean, but these guys, they're doing parallel. So for them, they're looking at it as a portfolio. The portfolio as a whole needs to. So it's it's an outliers game. It's like it's a parallel game. That's what I was looking for. But it's basically if you can push the limits on everybody, and one guy's going to 100x it because of that, it justifies everything. But most of them are just going to fall and burn during that.
Right. So that's where kind of in general businesses can be at odds with the incentive structure that their funders have. Yeah. But what I think is here's what and I haven't figured out how to communicate this 100% clearly, but what I think is so interesting is how in healthcare specifically, it's not just that. It goes a level deeper. Where the actual thing that makes you look like you might be a futuristic company is the exact thing that doesn't work in the real world. And I think that automated care coordination and Hippocratic AI specifically is like the perfect example of this. Because yes, like a CareCo, we can achieve 40, 50, 60% efficiency. We can allow care coordinators to do way more. We built this Copilot, it could be amazing, but it's not a robot. It's not the future. It's not like this futuristic concept of AI doctors that's so far out there. And you know what? And I actually have a decent amount of I'm not going to drop any names or anything, but I have a decent amount of inside information on this. The chance of them succeeding is very slim, and I think that they know that. But at the end of the day, we'll both agree that if they do succeed, then we took the wrong bet, and that's why this comes back to will CareCo be needed? I firmly believe on principle that there's a line in the sand that you have to draw when you can automate healthcare, and that line is when you have kind of like a one-way conversation with a patient versus an ongoing relationship. So what I mean by that is, if you're just trying to get information from the patient, hello, did you change your insurance? What's your new insurance information? Whatever, intake, patient intake, whatever it is. Yeah, you can probably automate that because it's not, it's just a questionnaire, right? You want the person to sound friendly. You don't want to have a lot of latency. And then other than that, it's not a big deal. But the second a human being has an ongoing condition that they need ongoing care, you need a human relationship. That's the principle that I have, and anyone that has done care coordination agrees with me. And at this point, I've probably spoken to close to 1,000 executives that will agree with this.
Can I take the other side of the argument?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've seen this whole AI companionship picking up?
Yeah.
That means people
I don't know if it's picking up. It's made some headlines. I haven't gone too deeply into it. I haven't tried it myself, to be honest. But
yeah, I don't think you need to. But it's very interesting. I would never think that people will actually, in their head, establish relationships with what they know is nothing. It's just is an AI, and people are doing it. So I don't know if it's a percentage of people that are capable of doing that, and then another percentage are not, or it's just in our human DNA, everybody can be in that point in life, which has a lot of promise, by the way, because there's a lot of lonely people out there. So there's a lot of scary and weirdness about this from the way I look at it, but there's also a lot of promise because you think about all those lonely people that don't have anybody to talk to, don't have anybody they can connect to. This opens up a lot of doors. But from that perspective, why can't I talk to somebody that's a fictionalist person? A fictitious person, and is not real.
So I think
you just don't think it's the majority of the population that can connect to that. Maybe that's what you're going to go.
I'd say a step deeper. I think that people who find solace or a solution in an AI bot for loneliness, that in itself is a sickness. Like that is not that's not a positive thing. That in itself is like I think it's a Band-Aid. I mean, just think about it practically. They're filling a hole of companionship in their life with a fake thing that only goes so far.
But what if it's telling them the things that they need to hear, that they're doing okay, everything's going to be fine, they're going to overcome their challenges? What if it helps them get by their day and move forward in life? And at some point they'll get out. At some point they'll have real friends. It could have its place, right? I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate. I don't know the details about this.
We're always mulling this over. I think it's super relevant to consistently discuss, and by the way, reevaluate every week at the pace that this market's moving. You want to see what's going on. I recently did. We'll come back to this in a second, but because I want to. But ChatGPT, maybe like a month ago, came out with a phone number. It was like on Christmas, I think. They came out with like a phone number that you can call. And so I did this. It actually
I think they were trying to target the older population, right? That doesn't know computers.
I think they have a friend in Hasidic Williamsburg. That's what I think is going on. They've got a Satmar friend, and he's like, listen.
Number. I need a number.
We need you to make the number. That's what we need over here. So
it's a big population.
Yeah, it is. It's a big population. There's definitely a lot of money there. There's this guy Joel Landau. He's like this. I mean, his name's Yoeli Landau, but on LinkedIn is Joel Landau. And I'm always seeing him every day. He's posting articles that he wrote. He's like this massive guy in Williamsburg. And I'm like, dude, who's writing these articles? It's not you. But so they came out with this number, and I gave it a whirl, and I went and I tried it and I called it. And the reason why I thought this would be a really good example is because OpenAI is going to have the best human-sounding voice models. They do. They're at the front of the market. So I was curious how it would go, and I did a video on this, put on LinkedIn where I was like, hey, can you replace my care coordinator? And it was like, no, I'm not ever going to be able to do that. AI is going to be able to become more and more and more involved, but it's never going to fully replace that thing. So I want to continue to dig into why that's true. And here's the question we need to ask: is there ever a point that will change? And if so, like, what's the environment what has to change fundamentally in order for that shift to happen? At the end of the day, I firmly believe, regardless of that conversation that we'll go through, that kind of exercise, I strongly believe that knowing seniors today, at least for the near future, and by near future, I mean probably 5 to 10 years, even if the technology is there, the people will not catch up. That's what I think.
It's interesting because that's similar to as you were talking about this, I was thinking you're talking about the relationship with the investors that are the attraction to large VC investors to these risky, out of touch startups. I think first of all, this is the way I see it is these kind of startups, what they're doing is they're not trying to build the next thing. They're trying to jump 10 steps forward. They're trying to be like an Elon, like a guy who's like looking like, what do we need now? What do we need in the next generation? What do we need in 20 years? And those things usually bring the most promise because you're not taking one step, you're jumping 10 steps. So the value is 10 steps forward. And also you don't have any competition. So that also is a huge value because you have competitive advantage. So that's where the real promise comes from. But the problem is, only certain people can do that.
Right.
Like
it's not
Elon.
that many Elons.
And I would say it's not just certain people, it's also certain types of problems. So they're trying to tackle a problem that requires humans to adapt to, which it's not in their control. They can succeed in everything they do in creating the best technology for, automated for what are we going to name this? AI care coordination. That means you're not talking to a human, you're communicating to a robot, to a machine. They can do the best that you would look at it and you'd be like, oh my God, I never thought this would be possible. But they can still fail because the people won't be interested.
Yes.
Now, Elon, for example, he's building stuff that he knows if he can offer that, people will buy it right away. When he worked on the electric car, he knew that if he can offer that, people will buy it right away. If he can offer trips to Mars, I'm not going to go to Mars. But
not the first trip, maybe the third trip I'll go.
But like all these things, it's like the Starlink. Starlink was like an afterthought almost, but for him,
Starlink was a revenue stream to support SpaceX.
Isn't that crazy? It's probably one of the most valuable companies in the world.
Wow.
Maybe it's not $1 trillion company yet, but it's gonna be. And it wasn't even like I want to build this company. It's like, no, I want to build SpaceX, but how am I going to fund it? Where am I going to get the money from? Let's think of something. Oh, let's do Starlink. Then it's like me trying to think, how am I going to pay for my lunch? And I go and I try to sell someone something.
Right.
So Elon does that and he starts Starlink.
Next thing you know, you have a utensils factory. But even Elon, I remember him saying, I think it was on Rogan once, it was so fascinating. He was talking about how the technology for full self-driving vehicles is 100% there. Society is not there. And
right.
here's what he said. He said, today, a football field full of people, 60,000 people die every year from MVAs, motor vehicle accidents, right? Car accidents. He said, if we rolled out full self-driving to all vehicles today, that number would shrink to, let's say, 3,000 people. So you just saved 57,000 people's lives. But the 3,000 people that die, and he's like, not only that, but every time someone dies, we're going to be able to upgrade, we're going to be able to find out what went wrong in the tech, meaning that means that the technology glitched and someone died. We're going to be able to figure out what went wrong, update the software and put that out across everyone. So the 3,000 people are going to move to zero in a very, very, very quick order.
Yeah.
But people are going to be able to point to the software, point to the car and say, that thing killed my family.
It's out of my control. Yeah.
And we are not ready as people to do that. We are comfortable with saying human error, but we're not comfortable yet. Even if it's at the expense of saving thousands of lives, we're not yet ready to say, I'll forgive the software, the makers of the software for killing my.
It's also a lot to do with, I think, government bureaucracy and just like, the plane when it came out, there wasn't a lot of regulation around it. Obviously, there was a lot of plane crashes and deaths, but because because there's already a infrastructure, so the legality of it are also. I think people will adapt very quickly to self-driving. I don't think people are holding back. Anybody who tries self-driving, they'll use it, right? I think it's on the government level that they're creating. But it's very interesting.
Yeah. So coming back to kind of CareCo and the difference between augmentation and automation, the flip side to my own argument is that, and I say this quite often, everyone always has this conversation of like, who should be calling the patients? The payer, they suck at calling the patients, and the doctor should be calling the patients. They don't call enough. And here, the thing everyone forgets is like, the patient actually does not care who calls them. All the patient wants is to be helped. And if you're the person bringing value to the patient, they're picking up the phone. And if you're the doctor, but you never help that patient, they're not picking up your call. And if you're the insurance, who currently no one likes to talk to, but they are actually helping you and they're using CareCo and they're like, hey, we know, how's your niece's birthday party and what's going on? And hey, I see that you're probably low on your meds. Let's get that refilled for you. Absolutely, I know where your pharmacy is. They're being helpful to you. That's the number you're going to pick up. And so if we do get to a point where AI achieves that level where it actually is super helpful to people and immediately and unlimited scale, I do think there's a world where it goes fully automation. I'm just not seeing that in the near future, and I'm definitely not seeing it with the current people like the Hippocratic AI. I'm sorry, but go to Hippocratic AI's website and go to look at their profiles for AI care coordinators and go listen to those recordings.
It's incredible, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough.
They don't even sound anywhere near as good as what OpenAI has. They sound terrible.
So yeah, I think people, it's like what you're saying about self-driving cars. I think people will trust self-driving cars much faster. And this is, I was actually talking to my wife about it. She was like, "Would you trust a self-driving car?" And I was like, "Would you trust our kid when they get a license to let them drive? No, you'd be petrified, but you let them drive a little,
and they don't crash.
Slowly over hours upon hours. This is how we become. This is also what builds complacency, but also what builds comfort." Is you get used to something. So I'll drive with the FSD. I'll drive with self-driving, full self-driving mode. I'll drive a little bit. I'll be with my hands near, ready to disengage at any moment. And then I'll be like, okay. And then slowly your mind gets used to it and gets more comfortable. And then you're doing longer drives. And before you know it, you're sleeping. Like maybe it could take a year until you're at that comfort. But it happens. You build trust in the system, and it happens automatically. Like when you're on a plane, do you see what the pilot is doing? You don't. It's just trust, because in your head that people are doing this all day and nothing happens, and that you've done it so many times and it's okay. So, but what I think is different in health is when you're going to serious surgery, who do you want to talk to? You want to talk to a human. You want to know this guy is the top doctor. And when this guy looks at you in the eye and says, "Listen, we're going to be fine," that's going to make you rest,
right.
Be relaxed. Not some AI robot just spitting out some, "Oh, everything's going to be okay."
Right. You know what? You know what also just occurred to me, that in order for this transformation to happen, it has to be perfect, and we're so far away from that. I mean, we're not even okay. We're not even good yet. We're so far away from perfect. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, self-driving is not there yet. As much as you can say it's because of government overregulation, you can also say because it's actually not there yet.
It's there. Waymo. You didn't see Waymo?
But that's exactly what I was just going to bring up. Waymo, there was just a thing where a guy got locked in his Waymo, and it was just doing circles around it. It basically glitched out, and it was doing circles around what's called a roundabout. And he was trying to go to the airport, and he couldn't get to his flight, and he couldn't get out of the car, and he couldn't do anything, and it's just going around and around. He's like banging on the windows, and there's no one to talk to, right?
So you're saying there aren't people sitting in some room?
I don't know. Or maybe the guy was like, "That's it, today I'm getting fired." The remote guy that was controlling the car. But at the end of the day, with people,
that's
you're like,
the end of the
"You know what? I don't like
It's very frustrating when you're trying to get to your flight, but it's not. I mean, it's not a deal breaker.
My point is that like in healthcare, or any customer service, like with a person, why do people like talking to people? And the second they hear an automated recording, they're like, representative, 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 representative. Why do you do that? You do that because you know that you're talking to a person. The second they finish, if they can't help you or you don't like them, you say, "Give me to your manager." There's some sort of resolution. Like, it has to be perfect,
And there's also like a human part where like you can plead, you can say the right words, and the person's like, "Okay, let me make an exception."
Right.
With the computers, it's not going to be like that. It's just going to be like very dry and cut.
Once I had like a terrible internet provider, horrible, and my internet kept going out, and I would call them, and I'd be like, "What's going on?" And I called this one time. This was it. This was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I called the company. I think it was Frontier. I called the company. Yeah, it was Frontier. I called the company, and I got in touch with some guy way overseas. And what I mean by overseas is not just that this person was overseas. The phone was dragged under the ocean all the way over to him. I'm pretty sure it wasn't even a real phone. He had a cup attached to a string that went under the ocean. I could barely hear the guy. The volume was all the way down. And I said, this is my problem, whatever. I was obviously frustrated. And he says, very thick accent, could barely understand him. And he says, "Listen, sir, I'd like for you to imagine that you are, thick Indian accent. I want you to imagine that you are sitting on a rocking chair on your front porch with the sun on your face, rocking." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? I need my internet to work." And I'm like, "Are you reading from a script? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard." He's like, Sir, I want you to imagine that you're rocking on a rocket." And I'm like, "What in the world is this?"
Maybe someone did that to him and it worked. And he was like, let me try this on my people and calm them down. Maybe it works.
I think there's a bit of a language barrier there. Yeah, exactly. So maybe something's working in some languages and not in others,
Yeah. It's also cultural difference. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So besides for Stargate, what else happened this week? I mean, the whole election happens. I mean, the inauguration happened this week, which is pretty wild. I mean, Trump brought. Did you see the Saudi Arabia thing? He's getting he's getting Saudi Arabia to invest also 500
Oh
billion.
yeah, I saw that.
600 billion. So he in 2 days he's been for 2 days. In 2 days he brought in over $1 trillion in revenue to the U.S.
Right.
It's wild.
It's a lot of money.
You know.
And then you saw like all the tech guys, like all the CEOs on the stage there. It's like I'm trying to figure out like what's their. Are they afraid? Do they want like just kissing the ring? Do they want like? I'm very curious about that.
I think we've taken the other side as far as it goes. And I think as a nation, we've like gotten the message. Like crime and trashy cities and, common
sense stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Like I think we're back to common sense. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, but these CEOs, they're...
Yeah. You think your opinion is Mark Zuckerberg is totally soulless and he just realized that the winds are shifting and he just flipped with the winds, basically.
I don't know. I'm questioning him and Jeff Bezos, like their authenticity on this. I mean, they're not, I mean, it could be it's in their self-interest, so it's not, not authentic, but I'm curious about, like, because Jeff Bezos was he had the Washington Post, the way it talked about Trump, it was crazy. Like they said, don't compare it to Hitler. You're doing a disservice to Hitler. Like that's what they would write. Like this is the head that, and he didn't stop that. But now before the election, he stops the endorsement. I mean, that's kind of like, it's almost like Mark Zuckerberg a few months before the election saying, "Oh, in writing this letter, we regret." It's almost like, Trump wrote a book, and in his book, he wrote that that if Mark is that something about Mark Zuckerberg, that if he's gonna do something, he's gonna put him in prison for the rest of his life.
When did Trump write it? You're saying recently?
I think some sort of book that he wrote recently.
Really?
Probably in the last few years, yeah. There's no book that
Trump write a book recently? Gotta get Perplexity up in here. Shout out.
That's
what you're on?
We have to have like this screen.
Let's
hey,
go.
we have to set this up.
I know.
Screen that listens and like queries AI and this like shows us like on a prompt.
Also, I think we have to rename you Jamie, I think, for this.
Jamie.
You know who Jamie is?
Oh, from the All In?
No, that's Rogan's guy.
Rogan's guy.
I think it's Jamie.
He has a book called Save America.
He wrote a book?
He accused Zuckerberg of plotting against him.
What did he tell Zuckerberg? What did he say? He said that if
he does anything illegal in the 2024 election, he would spend the rest of his life in prison.
So he said if he does anything illegal...
One second.
Do people
Who wrote this
hear
book?
what you're saying, or do we need to repeat that so people hear?
You might have to repeat it, I don't know. Yeah, you might.
Donald J. wrote the book.
Are you...
I mean, I'm sure he didn't write it.
It's ghostwritten for sure, but... That's still okay. So Trump had some sort of book. How did he not sell that as like a crypto thing and like, like how was this not like a what was that thing?
This was when he wasn't popular. This was when everybody was talking about.
When he was still getting like arrested and stuff.
Yeah,
like
but everybody's saying we're moved on from Trump.
Basically, before he went to the
even the Republicans were saying DeSantis, right? Everybody's saying DeSantis.
Apparently, he's going back now to like say thank you.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Donald Trump, really?
Apparently. See, anyway, what?
Oh yeah, so he wrote this book and he said, and what did he say that if Mark Zuckerberg does anything
illegal
in the 2024
election,
he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life.
Wow.
And then after Mark Zuckerberg wrote his thing and kind of shifted gears, people asked Trump. This is recently. They asked him, "Do you think he changed because he's afraid of your threat?" He says, "Probably."
Probably. That's funny. Did you see Mark's episode with Rogan?
Okay. I saw part of it. Yeah.
I actually, when I drove to DC on Sunday, I was in DC and I listened to that whole thing. It's actually really funny because you know how like the internet will just take clips and cut them up and make it totally out of context. And do you ever see those Rogan clips that are totally redone where they do that to the extreme and they completely make up a conversation? And it's hilarious. Like they make
they stitch a bunch.
They stitch a bunch of clips. It is the funniest thing because it looks totally legit, and it's not AI. Like it's not like made up. It's just stitched, but it looks hilarious. Anyway, so there was one point in the conversation where where Mark was talking about other social media platforms and how they're coming around, and then Rogan says, "Yeah, it's so weird because like, yesterday you were lying to us, but today we're supposed to believe that you're one of the good ones." And then basically people just cut that clip and it looks like he's saying it directly to Mark. And it makes perfect sense because Mark just turned this whole thing around and he's like, oh yeah, now we're like free speech and now we're like, we're dropping fact checking, we're doing all this stuff. And it just like makes perfect sense. And they like stitched in like a very awkward pause where he's just like, I guess, it's hilarious. Yeah. But
Yeah. No, I think that was bold that he went into Joe Rogan because Joe Rogan doesn't,
they're friends.
they're friends.
Yeah, it's not his first time.
They know each other through the UFC guy, no? Or they know each other back.
Dana
back.
White.
What?
Dana White.
Dana White.
No, Mark's been on before. He's been on a bunch. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're both ninjutsu guys or whatever. What does he do? He does ninjutsu, I think. Jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So yeah, they're both through that and whatever. Yeah, but it definitely was interesting how the election, like at the inauguration, you had all these tech guys. You had what's the Google guy's name again?
Sergey?
Yeah.
Sergey?
No.
Sergey?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Pichai?
That guy.
Oh, you're talking about CEO, yeah, because also one of the founders was there, Sergey Brin or something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So you had him and Elon and Mark and
Like it just feels like it feels like you're selling your soul. Like unless they genuinely
they were
like,
undercover liberals till now.
no, or unless they woke up and they're like, come on, you guys took this too far. This is definitely the common sense.
Yeah.
We're going with this. This is not like I saw someone yesterday saying it was like, I go to a restaurant. I love the restaurant. It doesn't mean I love everything that's in the restaurant, but I love the restaurant because there's 5 things that I like there. So same thing. It's like you don't have to. Not everything has to be so binary. Like I love Trump and I'm buying everything that he says. It's like overall, this is the best pick, and this is where you think we're headed in the right direction. So unless they had that change of mind and change of heart or whatever, like it just seems like so like they're selling their soul. They're just like standing up and it's like kissing the ring.
Right. Yeah.
These are like the wealthiest people in
and
the
you would
world.
you would expect them to be at a place in life where they don't have to do that anymore. Like you could just have your opinion and I guess to your point, like I guess you respect Paul Graham a little bit where he's just he dug his heels in and he's like this is who I am and at all costs. Or the other side of that, I mean, the naive possibly side of that, the other side of the argument is that no, that they've been truthful the whole time. They've been pressured by the government to play along until now, and now they're realizing like we can finally be free. I mean, essentially. But I listened last night. I had to drive to New York and. So I had a lot of time in the car, so I listened to a bunch of podcasts. But the All In people did like just a ton of stuff in D.C. while they were there, like during the election. So they did one that was actually really interesting. They had 3 politicians on, like 3 congressmen on. First was a Republican, then 2 liberals, and or Democrats, I should say. And I'm trying to remember the name of the Democrats, but I can't. One of them is like somewhat famous, meaning like you would probably recognize the name if I said it. But he's from California, I think. And like J-Cal ripping into him, like ripping into him. Like, you guys have gone way too, like so far, you've lost me. I'm a 2 out of 3 time Democrat voter. I'm a super Democrat. Shema, same thing. Even David Freeberg was like, vegan and like, right? I think he's vegan, right?
Yeah, but that does have to do with anything?
No, but it's not all vegans are, but he's that definitely that kind of persuasion. And he's like, they were just ripping into him. Like, you guys absolutely messed up. You've gone so far. You're like, there's a bunch of these 80-20 issues and you guys keep choosing the 20%, of, that most Americans don't care about. Most Americans just want their families to be safe and they want the economy to be up. And I was like, wow.
It's so surprising that that the Democratic Party didn't realize how detached they are from what regular people want.
Yeah.
I mean, all that, and all the risks that they took. It's almost like they were so complacent with their control and their success that they were like, we can do this. We have the media, we have, different control points. We have this in our back pocket, no problem. Because on paper, they shouldn't have picked Kamala. They shouldn't have let her pick Walls. Walls. I mean, on paper, all that was like, these are not A players. These are B players. I think at best.
It wasn't Jamie Raskin. No, that's not what it was. I'm trying to remember who it was. But he said something kind of crazy. He said, "This is the like a high level Democrat. Do you want to see who
people on the thing?
What?
Eric Swalwell.
Eric Swalwell. Thank you. Thank you. It's Eric Swalwell. he's like a pretty high level Democrat, and he basically said that he doesn't think anyone would have won because it was too late in the game and everyone was set up for failure. What that means is that they set her up for failure, which is
Right.
not cool.
Right. They threw under the
He
bus,
basically
so to speak.
said, and he basically said that anyone that, because they said, would there have been any better candidate?
Was he implying that they knew that, or he was saying
Yes.
it wouldn't matter?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
The way I am interpreting it, it sounded like they understood that, and they kind of, this is just what they set up. They basically just put up like a, which is wild.
So they just kept Joe. Joe could have done a
Yeah.
good enough job, I think.
Yeah. Well, here's to new beginnings at in the country. I implore of my LinkedIn connections. I know a lot of people. I'm sensing some negativity about some of the moves that are coming through. I saw some negativity about Stargate, which I think is silly. It's a $500 billion investment in the U.S. When I put up my post, someone in the comments was like, "Oh, yeah, right." As if the tech people are going to fix healthcare. That's not the point. The point is that it's amazing that in a $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure in the U.S., the top use case was healthcare. The top use case.
Because the biggest pain point, most money is there.
But you and I think that because this is what we're doing. But the world thinks that. Larry Ellison is not the CEO of Cerner. He's the owner of Oracle. Oracle happened to have bought Cerner and made Oracle Health.
Yeah.
Like, he could have said anything. It was healthcare. Like, that's amazing. So I think people should just, first of all, root for the country. Like, hope that we make progress. Hope we make progress in healthcare. Hope we make progress in winning the AI race, which I think is important for everybody. Let's root for the best, and let's see how it goes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I got some cool news this week on HIMSS. There's a lot of exciting things happening for HIMSS.
Tell us about HIMSS. What's HIMSS?
For those that are unaware, HIMSS is probably the biggest healthcare conference in the U.S. Many people say that it's kind of back and forth between HIMSS and health, but they expect about 35,000 people there. It's going to be in Vegas, March.
What kind of people? Professionals?
They gave me the whole
Healthcare?
breakdown. Yeah, a lot of professionals, mostly executives, a lot of payers, but health systems, payers, innovators, a lot of interesting people.
Providers too, like doctors?
Yeah. I'm excited. It's my first time going. I've never been.
What are you going to do there?
I am going to be doing a lot of content there. So I'm actually going in two roles so far. I'm part of a brand new kind of social media influencer type thing that they have going on. So I'm going down to kind of create content and talk about the conference, which I'm excited about. I think I'm honored they invited me, and I'm more than happy to go
They
do that.
invited you. It's
Yeah.
nice. And they invite everybody? Everybody that's going there is invited?
I mean, most people you have to sign up and
To sign up, okay.
yeah, you have to sign up and
Oh,
go.
nice.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. It should be an interesting program. It's the first, I have kind of an interesting history with healthcare conferences. I've gone to some pretty small ones, and I decided they were kind of a waste of time. I felt like most people that went to these conferences were just kind of employees that were told by their bosses, like, we have to show up here, so go. But since then, I've spoken at a lot of really big conferences. I think probably the biggest one I ever did was Think 360 in DC. There's about 1,000 people there, and obviously not much smaller than HIMSS, but did a wonderful fireside kind of chat with Dr. John White, who's a good friend. He's the chief medical officer of WebMD, and love him. And I've done some keynotes and a bunch of things, and since then I've kind of changed my opinion. There are definitely conferences that are awesome, and people go there to actually create change and find out what's going on. So I'm really excited. I mean, 35,000 people. It's definitely one of the bigger ones. It's going to be in Vegas. It's March, I think, 3rd to 6th.
3 days?
No, it's like 5. It technically starts on Sunday even. So it's like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
wow.
Thursday. It's like a 5-day kind of thing. Yeah. I'm going to land hopefully early Monday morning. I think I land at like 10:30, and then I'm going to leave late Wednesday night. So I'll be there for a good amount of time. I'll be there basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I'm also going to be doing a fireside chat,
Oh, nice.
which I'm very excited about with a guest that will soon be announced. We kind of
Special
were
guest.
special guest. We came up with a very, very unique concept to talk about. So I'm really excited about that. I mean, we'll share more, I guess, as the announcements come out. But just the team there has been really, really nice, really great, and I'm really excited. Like,
Nice.
it's definitely one of the highlights of my week.
Sounds good. It's good to have things to look forward to.
Yeah. So on the technical side, I mean, we have very different roles
Right.
at the company. Like, I'm, talking, my entire day is talking to people.
Right.
I have days where I do not stop speaking
You're selling and I'm building.
Yeah.
I mean, me and the whole team.
Right.
Nachem, whatever.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, was there a highlight this week? Was it an up week or a down week? What's the line that we love to say? There's only two feelings.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
Who says this? I think maybe Mark Andreessen said this, that there's only two emotions that you feel. It's either euphoria or terror. I think he was referring to startups. Like, it's either it's like, oh my God, or it's like, oh my God. So yeah, there's sometimes it could be in the middle.
So was it a euphoric week or a terrifying week?
I would say somewhere in the middle. There are definitely some challenges. So do you want to give a background about CareCo, or you don't feel like that's necessary?
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening this far and you haven't seen CareCo yet, CareCo is a co-pilot for care coordinators. It is built to only take on the tedious, burnout-inducing, annoying parts of the job that are actually inherently done better by technology, such as Gen AI, and allow the human to do more of the human parts of care. So we've built it in a way that it's kind of an augmentation, not an automation of care coordinators.
And just care coordinators, just tell us what care coordinators are.
Yeah, that's actually really, really important. I do this on all of my meetings. When I get on with a meeting, I say, hey, we're a co-pilot for care coordinators. The first thing that I do is define care coordination for me, meaning my definition of care coordination, because there's so many definitions. What I mean when I say care coordination is people that are doing preventive telephonic care. Preventive telephonic
But you're still speaking
care.
in the healthcare terminology.
So preventive.
As a layman, what does that mean? What kind of people are we dealing with?
Yeah, so it's people that are making phone calls to patients on someone's behalf, typically either the doctor or maybe the insurance provider. So the payer, as it's called. The reason why preventive is important is because typically preventive care is ongoing. And that's really important because the relationship really matters in those kind of scenarios.
So they're making what, like monthly calls?
It could be monthly, it could be biweekly, it could be bi-monthly. But
so somebody calling the patient, and what are they? Are they nurses? Are they?
It really depends. I mean, usually they're nurses. Something called community health workers is becoming more prevalent, which is just essentially unlicensed people that are working in healthcare.
Okay. So they're either nurses or know a bit about healthcare. They're not clinical, so they can't make real decisions.
Right.
But they can kind of guide you, and so they call up and they kind of check up on you and see how things are going.
Yeah. And the idea is really to lower healthcare spend by being proactive about people's healthcare. So, for example, if a patient has diabetes, so diet is really important there. Exercise can be really important. Medication
so it's kind of
adherence
reminding them, or it's
could be
also
really
motivating
important.
them.
Yeah, it's all of the above. I mean, the better you are, the more you're going to be able to motivate, right? So you have to have a relationship. That's really, really important. That's what really CareCo is all about, is helping people build that relationship at scale. And so, yeah, like if you don't have a good relationship and your phone call sounds like, "Hi Shlomo, it's Mendel. Do you need anything?"
Right.
No?
Yeah, I've heard some of those phone calls.
Okay, I'll talk to you next month. Bye. Click. Shlomo's probably going to say, "Hey, can you please stop calling?"
Just
Right?
for clarity, so if I'm a person that has certain medical conditions, I think these are usually conditions that Medicare will pay for, because for certain programs they will pay for someone to call me monthly to follow up, because Medicare knows that statistically, if I get phone calls every month, I'm more likely to remain healthy, and the money they're paying for that outweighs the money they're saving. I'm saying this in a very transactional, mathematical, financial perspective, but obviously also we're preventing people from getting sick and saving lives. But from them, that's like the perspective, right? So as long as you're calling people, you're going to help prevent them from getting sick, and we're ready to pay for that. But people that are in a very specific category, like chronic conditions, diabetes, hypertension, stuff like that, right?
Right. That's exactly it.
So
yeah.
what we're doing is we're building a software to help these people make the phone call.
Yeah, so we're augmenting all the pieces of that workflow, such as pre-call prep. So we've got something called a call guide, which essentially takes all the context that it knows about that we know about the patient, from conversation data, from their care plan, from educational content, social determinants of health data, whatever we have, and then stacks that data on top of an objective for the call. And that's really powerful. I mean, we've seen this at work.
So without this, can you describe what would a care coordinator, one of these people that call the patient, what would their preparation for a call look like without CareCo?
So if the care coordinator or care navigator or care manager or case manager, there's a lot of different names for it, but if they're doing a good job and they're very experienced, what they would have to do is literally go and look at the patient's chart, look at their care plan, and that's where you're going to define kind of goals, challenges, barriers, different things that are necessary to get to the patient to that goal. They'll then look at the notes from the previous call. So they're going to want to see, what did we leave off with last month? Then they are going to make the call to the patient. Hopefully they're going to move the patient on one of the goals on the care plan. In their mind and as part of their experience, they're going to have already have knowledge as far as like general patient education about things, or have access to it, and incorporate that into their call to try to help the patient. And so there's a lot of different fragmented pieces that have to come into play manually in order to make this a successful call.
And also they have to react in real time to the
Exactly. And that's why a lot of it has to be actual experience. Like if you've been doing this for 10 years and you've seen every case in the book and you've talked to, thousands of patients, you're going to know how to respond in real time. But if you're new, you're not going to have that knowledge. And then after the call, it gets really tedious as well, because after the call, you're going to have to write documentation. In healthcare, it's very common saying that
AI is really good at writing documentation.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of an obvious one, but in healthcare they say that if you didn't document it, didn't happen. That's kind of a common phrase. Right. And so very clear, concise documentation, comprehensive documentation is very important. But also you want to make sure that you're only getting the clinically relevant things in that documentation, and then actually caring for the patient. Deciding what you need to do. Maybe the patient is running out of a medication, you got to get that refilled. Maybe the patient requested an appointment, and so you kind of there's a lot that goes in manually. There's a lot of manual labor that goes into post call, making sure. So what CareCo does is it kind of finds all the pieces of that workflow that can be augmented, such as that pre-call prep that I talked about, the call guide. Then post call, we just automatically right away we give them their documentation. We give them their tasks. So we decide, we listen to the conversation. We decide every single thing that is actionable that they can do for the patient. Provider communications based on those tasks. So for example, if there was something concerning to the patient that you have to message the provider about, we'll go ahead and write that message for you. Messages to the patients, which is very different. That's a patient message, looks very different. And then everything kind of coming together into dashboards and analytics and patient profiles and just being very clear and concise. So, I mean, it's obviously pretty. We've been working on it for quite some time, but yeah,
we're doing all the heavy lifting. We're aggregating all the data, saying, "Don't worry about it. Be relaxed." What was that phrase that guy told you on that call?
What?
Imagine you're on the porch now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, hey, care coordinator, imagine you're on the porch, sitting in a rocking chair, sipping a cup of tea, and doing care coordination.
All right,
yeah,
but literally, like, just relax.
Yeah.
We got it all covered for you.
Just care.
Just be in the right piece,
Just care.
Be in the right mind setting for talking to the patient. Just do your best human-to-human thing, and we'll just give you all the data. We'll let you know what you're missing, what you're not.
Yeah.
We'll handle heavy lifting for
you. You know what I love about it? It's what AI should be. It's when AI is working for you.
Right.
It's like it's literally like having 1,000, not 1,000, but maybe like 7 assistants standing around your desk, each of them with their own role of like finding data and making sure it's relevant to exactly what you need, and then handing it to you, incredible. Like spoon feeding you.
With that analogy, it sounds incredible. Like imagine
it's amazing.
People can have that at a fraction of negligible cost.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's definitely been a good week. We've onboarded a couple clients. People are happy. It's really exciting to see kind of the added efficiencies. You know what's one of the most exciting things, and maybe we'll kind of end with this, but we really obsess, we really obsess about the designs. Our UX UI is really important to us. And I think people can see that in kind of the marketing that we put out is gorgeous. I mean, I see Google ads and I'm like, they can someday soon. Google will be at the level of CareCo, ads. That's kind of like how I feel. But it's so cool to implement a new design, and then we do our A/B tests that we do, and then watch the new design turn into further action. So like we did this recently with our tasks, where we completely revamped the design of tasks, and it was like maybe the third or fourth iteration. We're always trying to iterate, and then we did an A/B test, and we just watched how that new design like immediately translated into, it was like a 30 or 40% increase in task completion. I mean, that stuff that stuff gets me. It's so cool. Yeah.
What
awesome.
the AB
No, that you can like
tweak the design.
You can start from like an idea from everything we do is in-house, and we have a tremendous UX UI team, and something could start from an idea and analyzing the data and analyzing, the efficacy, and then saying, hey, what if we did this? What if we switch this color from green to red? Literally we said, what if we switch this from green to red? Right. And what if we just move this thing here, and we made like this animation, it's kind of hard to describe, but like make it very action oriented. And what if there's like a label that shows that like you have to complete these tasks? Like what if we could do that? And then we go ahead and implement it, and then we watch it, and boom, it's actually like translating into increased tasks. That, like, to me, that's a crazy concept.
Yeah, and I think that's how everybody needs to build, software. You need to build software with a strong conviction about what, you have to have a vision. You can't just be data-driven. You can't build your whole software data-driven. You have to have a vision of what you think your product looks like. But you have to always be ready to let go of an idea if the evidence is not there that it's actually serving the purpose of what you think it is. So basically, you have to be able to measure and say people are actually using this. And if you don't see that evidence, you have to just delete it and throw it out. And it's hard sometimes because people get connected to certain ideas. And that's what we did with the tasks. Like we were seeing, the tasks was a great idea. But what we were seeing with the tasks were that the completion rate was relatively low to where we wanted it to be. So then we said, maybe tasks is not the right thing for our product. Maybe it's not what our users want, even though we know that managers love that. So it still had an argument to make that it's a good product. But if people were not using it, that's a big problem there. So that's where we iterated on saying, what if we do this? What if we put it more in their face? What if we make it more annoying that they see that they have outstanding tasks? And we did that A/B test, and like you said, we saw that huge jump. So yeah, that's incredible. That's how people should build stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Like Kevin O'Leary says, sometimes you just got to take it behind the barn and shoot it in the head. Anyways, all right, this was a fun first episode. I think we'll try to do this weekly. Let's get last cheers in here. We'll try to do this weekly, here's to episode 1.
Yeah.
Until next time. Cheers.